America's heartland, always known for its scenic views and its place as a staple in the Midwest, but tonight it will be a stand-off venue where the playoffs continue to loom over the horizon and drivers fight for every last point. Tonight, it's the virtual Kansas Speedway on display, where we welcome you to coverage of the 4-Wide Racing ARCA Series and round number 14 on the campaign, of course, from the virtual Kansas Speedway with our coverage right here on the KBueno Racing Network. So happy to have you along for the ride where, alongside Francisco Bacchiao, up here in the broadcast booth atop the virtual Kansas Speedway, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Of course, we are so happy to have you for our Tuesday's coverage, and it's a different look here tonight, Francisco. Of course, we've got our faces now, our beautiful faces on the broadcast team for everybody to see on the YouTube channel. But nonetheless, it's a different look for the drivers, Francisco. This is not the track that was expected to be seen when the schedule dropped for the 4-Wide Racing ARCA Series. It's a different look with Kansas Speedway. And with the playoffs coming in only just 3 races, it means it's a whole new obstacle for drivers to face.
Happy to be here, Kenneth, and you just mentioned it right there. That's definitely the big news of the race week, if you will. We were supposed to be over at the USA Speedway for tonight's race, but now we're running at Kansas, which the Cup Series is also running at tomorrow. So a late change to a 1.5-mile racetrack from what was supposed to be a short track. Definitely a big obstacle for some of these guys in terms of that preparation they were sort of having. Maybe we're putting in some lap times over at USA, but now they had to kind of squeeze in a couple of laps at Kansas to try and see if they can gain any advantage and try and figure out what line they had to do or any of that sort of things that you normally would have to do going into a race. So with less time for proper preparation, we'll see if that catches some guys out, or maybe if somebody who was able to get in that practice time in the small time window we had between the announcement and today, if someone was able to get enough practice to really have a better run than maybe they were expecting.
Of course, is the elephant in the room, as we would say, with this change on the schedule. It was not expected by the drivers. Of course, you mentioned we're expected to see the USA International Speedway, which would have been our 3rd trip to sort of a grassroots short track, but because of concerns over yellows and, of course, driver concerns over the amount of yellows throughout races, league owner Tyler Murray and race council deemed it fit to change it to the famed 1.5-mile oval, which we'll take a look at in greater detail with our KBueno track map and our images courtesy of Google Earth. And in fact, it's one of the youngest tracks on the NASCAR circuit. Opened back in 2001, broke ground in 1999, but nonetheless, if you talk playoffs, if you talk high intensity racing, this track definitely puts, or at least comes to mind in some sort of cases. Located in Kansas City, Kansas, not too far away from the main city where you would expect the Kansas City Chiefs to go play football. It's a 1.5-mile oval, 2.4 kilometers in length, with banking 17 to 20 degrees of progressive banking in either corner, Francisco. That's going to be a very big talking point throughout this entire race, because in numerous different venues, we've seen multi-grooves work. Drivers going for the inside, drivers going for the middle, drivers going up top. In this track, you have grip to make all lanes viable, whether it's all the way on that white line or it's all the way to that safer barrier, which means we're going to see a lot of wide racing and some drivers taking risks along the way as well.
That is true. We do have a lot of options here at the Kansas Speedway with our surface and with the way that iRacing has sort of programmed this track to be. Though, like we see at most mile and a halves, I believe the tire saving line and the preferred line will still be towards that inside line, close to that painted white line. You want to try and keep your left sides at or near that white line, just wrap it around there, and that should help that right front tire and even that right rear to an extent, because if you run that wall, that could really wear both of those right side tires and the right rear more here so than any other racetrack. So it's just a matter of when you got to go up there. It gets to the point in a run where the tire wear sort of doesn't matter and you have to run up there. So we'll see if we reach that point here tonight where that top ends up being just so much faster to the point where you have to run it. Normally, it takes about 20, 25 laps before that ends up being the case. But we'll see here tonight with these ARCA cars just how this ends up working out and who ends up sort of achieving the best of the circumstances if we do get some of these long green flag runs that we know we can get at these mile and a half racetracks, Kenneth.
And of course, if you're looking at achieving in the best circumstances, you're going to also want to look at the point standings. If you're a driver just beneath the top 10 or further out on the spectrum, you can take a look at your current playoff grid. So if the playoffs were to end after last race over, then we would exactly see these 10 drivers fight for the Full Wide Racing ARCA Championship. Joe Sanchez, arguably the best driver in terms of wins. He's got 3 on total for the season. Ken MacArthur, Kyle Benson with a win each, so they're also locked into the top 3, but it's a points fight all the way from 4th on back. Eric Schaefer, Curtis Kelly to the top 5. Christopher Bishop, Tony Kibbett, Lownslugger, Banks, and Newbraw currently would be the final drivers in that grid. But then you look at drivers like Brandon Gillis, 25 points out. Jacob Denson, our rookie, 27 points out, along with league owner Tyler Murray, Coney Kinsey, Michael Woolley, Austin Riddy. So many standout drivers, Francisco, that are going to end up possibly on the edge of the cutoff or maybe just out of the playoff conversation entirely if they're not able to make the best of these next 3 races, including tonight here from the Kansas Speedway. But drivers are lined up on the grid as we speak, which means it's our time, of course, to take a look at your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be starting here tonight from America's Heartland and the virtual Kansas Speedway. On pole is Brian M. Smith. Remember the winner from Bristol a couple of weeks ago. He lines up the fastest time in qualifying with a 31.767. He'll lead us to the green flag here tonight with Jake Roel looking for his 3rd straight win in 3 attempts. He'll line up the outside of your first row.
AJ Green is in that 3rd position. AJ Green been able to make himself a name in the top 5 the last couple of weeks, looking to continue that momentum. And Jacob Denson, who we saw as early as Pocono, he's been very consistent up at the front of the field, trying to see if he can sort of get a good result and start some forward momentum.
Back to row 3, you'll find 3-time winner and looking for 4-time winner nickname in this series. Joe Sanchez in the 55 will start just inside the top 5. And I mentioned league owner Tyler Murray, a driver on the outside looking in for the top 10 in the point standings. He's going to try and gain some momentum here from Kansas. He'll start in P6.
And looking down at 7th place, Colin Forrester. He's a 3-time winner over in the Cup Series. No wins yet in ARCA this season. Looking to see if today's the day he can turn that around. With Craig Lautenschlager consistently in the top 5, consistently in the top 10. Can he get one of those to try and help his playoff chances?
And behind them in row number 5, you'll find the 69 of Michael Woolley. Inside row number 5 in P9, and Jesse Preece with a nice qualifying effort. He'll start just on the edge of the top 10.
Charlie Harcum, also very consistent in his short appearances we've seen this season. He's going to try to get a top 10 or 5 this time around once again. And Austin Reedy, a driver who we've seen have speed, Kenneth, but has struggled to put races together. Can today be the day he puts one together?
Back to row number 7, you'll find the winner over at Charlotte in the Cup Series just last week. Nicholas Gowan in the 31 will start P13 with Daytona winner Ken MacArthur on his outside in row 7.
Christopher Bishop lining up in the inside of your 8th row with Nicholas Zuzzi. These two looking to have a strong change in momentum.
Well, look behind them in the rest of the field. Jason Hastings, Kyle Benson will line up all the way to the drivers in P18. It's Dalia Kinsey to P20. Those are the last drivers to take time on the grid. You'll see Brandon Banks, Steenbachers, Eric Schaefer, Tristan Bailey, Jovi Ray, Lance Hill, Tony Kibbett, Curtis Kelly, Michael Newbraw, Brian Dixon, Douglas Carlson, Ricky Rosner, Pete Bruni, and Brandon Gillis. The final drivers out of a very stout 34-car field here tonight from the virtual Kansas Speedway. We'll take a look at our weather just before we go green. It turns 3 and 4 with an air temp of 74 degrees with winds just barely to the south at 7 miles per hour. It is a gorgeous day in sim. No clouds in sight. Sun is out. We're ready for some fantastic racing here from America's Heartland. 3 races left until the playoffs begin, and it's Brian Smith, Jake Raw, your first row as we wave the green flag from Kansas.
An intriguing start there, Kenneth. You saw the inside lane basically go to the apron there as they were going through the gears all the way to the outside. That should give Brian M. Smith the lead here coming off turn 2. As you see most of the field staying double file as they come off turn 2. It is Brian M. Smith out front.
So far, a good look out of that number 78, although you can't really see a number on that Chevrolet machine as Roel and AJ Green look to the inside. Joe Sanchez looking for the inside on Jacob Denson. He's going to make that complete, so Sanchez moves up to P4, but so far, Brian M. Smith already with a good lead back to turn 1 on lap number 2 with a 0.256 second gap so far on the driver of the 19. So far single file, but a 3 wide action behind them. That's Tyler Murray in the middle.
And there you see right there going to the inside is the 63 of Kinsey, I believe that is going all the way to the bottom. Actually, that's the 69 of Michael Woolley. And we see Austin Reedy up top trying to make some moves. And this is going back to what you talked about at the top of the show, Kenneth. We have these different lines. They're going to be able to have the grip to at least go elsewhere and make it work realistically. Though, of course, if this race does stay green, those who run up top will most likely suffer more on this long run.
And of course, we mentioned 74 degrees in the air. That did not account for what's the temperature going to be like on the track. So with the sun out here at Kansas, we're probably seeing a way hotter track temp than what you could expect here, especially given the fact that we're in late October, moving to early November here in the Kansas side of things in the Midwest. So these drivers could fight a lot of heat on the tires over a long run. As the battle for 5th goes on, that's Colin Forster. Help from Austin Reedy in that bright Menards number 11 that we saw DEI run in the NASCAR Busch Series a handful of years ago. As a pass on Jacob Denson complete. So Denson on the way backwards to start this race, while Sanchez and Colin Forster and company are on their way forwards in the first couple of laps. But Francisco, you said multiple lines are viable. Drivers on the inside will probably save the most tire. But what sacrifice do you really make as a driver to start this race, given the fact that if you look at the trends from this series, especially on these larger tracks, there's been a lot of yellows that have flown?
Well, that just goes to that depends what kind of strategy you're hoping for out of the race. If you think the race itself will be green flag, as you see right there, Smith hit the apron. Here comes Roel now to the inside. He has the preferred line here, trying to see if he can go to the inside. But if you think this race does go green, if Kansas is not exactly a track where you see that many yellows, so if this race does go green like we saw Charlotte do for the most part, then saving tires is going to matter. And we'll see that those that save tires will definitely be stronger in the latter portions of the run. At least after lap 20, you see Smith going way up top. That should give Roel the lead here off turn number 2. You see AJ Green go to the outside and Smith making a strong comeback. That's what that outside does for you. It does give you this strong boost of momentum, but as he stays running this outside, it will wear his tires out more, making it all the more difficult to stay up front.
You saw Jake Rell did not shut the door at the exit of turn 2, although he does make the pass for the race lead. So our first lead change of the night goes to that 19 machine of Jake Rell. And Jake Rell, just a lot of success in his attempts, Francisco, for the 4-Wide Racing ARCA Series. Mentioned him as a driver that would do well in these intermediates in the Cup Series, would burn off his tires, but he was a driver that we see look for that inside, look for the high line, and he would be pretty fast on the short runs just because he was so aggressive. His turn into the ARCA Series has been quite different. Talked to me on that last interview we had after he won Charlotte. Said he kind of hoped he would step up his game on the intermediates and be a little better. But so far in the intermediates, he's been undefeated in his attempts. He won at Homestead a couple of weeks back when they exhausted all green-white checkered attempts. Only had to use an organic green-white checkered really to get to victory over at Charlotte just last week. So Roel has done a solid job to put himself in conversation for wins here in the 4-Wide Racing ARCA Series. And with this pass for the lead on lap 8, still looking in the right direction. Forster around, and caution flag waves, and there is that bright pink, blue, yellow, green, whatever color it is, Forster's machine nonetheless around and backed into the outside safer barrier. Caution waves for the first time tonight here on lap 9. After what was our longest green flag run of the night has just turned sour. There's a bit of damage there, a bit of pancake there on that left side of that 99 machine, Colin Forster. We'll take a look and see exactly what might have happened, whether he had some help or whether he lost it on his own accord. And I think he did have some help, Francisco, while we look at the replay in 3 and 4.
Yeah, he had some help there by Michael Woolley. See right there, just enough overspeed there to get into the back of him. You see Woolley gets into the wall, so does Craig Lautenslager. But obviously the biggest impact here is to Colin Forster. Around he goes, losing the track position and damage to that race car. So 3 cars involved in this incident. You see right there, Woolley had a good run off turn 2, but just too far back and very optimistic going into turn 3. And just with these ARCA cars, man, if you make any contact, just it'll send the car going around. You see actually right there, a tire came off the 99 as he slammed the outside wall. So that's definitely going to be a faster pair, even though you don't see that much physical damage to the body.
And of course, we talk about just how risky these ARCA bumpers are. As you take one more look here on onboard, as Craig Lautenslager, kind of the third outman in this one really couldn't do anything as they ended up in that outside safety barrier while Landslager was aiming for a high line for momentum. But, I mean, these ARCA bumpers, they are so dramatically different from a lot of other cars on the service that you give it a bump naturally in any car and it probably would get a driver loose. I mean, from that angle, it would still turn a driver around, but with these cars, the way the bumpers are fixtured is just a lot more dramatic, and you can really dig into those bumpers, turn a car around, and it's exactly what we saw as Wooly tried to make a pass on the 99 of Colin Forster. Meanwhile, you just watched leaders come out of pit road. That was our first attempt at yellow flag pit stops, and no changes for the drivers up front. Roel, Smith, Green, Reedy, and Sanchez. Your top 5, that remained unchanged. Wooly up to P6, while, of course, guys like Craig Lounslager and Colin Forster look for damage repair. There's a fast repair burn on Craig Lounslager's machine, and so he'll come out in P10. And as for that, it'll be our first caution of the night. Lap number 10. Seemed to be a good run up until that point.
Yeah, and Craig Lounslager, he did say he had to use the fast repair because he received the iRacing meatball flag, as we call it, which is the black flag with the orange circle, meaning he had required damage on that race car. And unfortunately for him, had to use the fast repair early. So unfortunate for him. But one thing we will talk about, Kenneth, and the difference between ARCA and Cup this season, the primary one when it comes to strategy, is that the ARCA series does not have tire set limits. The Cup series does. So these guys will be a lot more aggressive with coming down pit road and trying to take some tires and doing something different versus the Cup series where you have to plan out when your stops are going to be and you have to timely use them because you can't just come in every single time and put a fresh set of tires on.
And I also think that that probably rewards, in this case, no tire sets for the more aggressive drivers, right? You got to think that with the tire set limits, drivers don't really have the leeway to be so aggressive early in runs, late in runs, middle of runs. They don't have that opportunity just because they're too afraid of wasting the tire sets earlier. And then, of course, having the concerns of having maybe the oldest tires later in the race or not having a tire set saved for, let's say, if the race goes into green, white, checkered territory. But because this series specifically does not have tire set limits, then those aggressive drivers can use cautions to their advantage and just go for tires and not have to worry about how much sets they're burning off. But nonetheless, hasn't really changed too many factors here in terms of the opening 11. And I believe we're going to get the 1 to green signal this time by, so we should get the field doubled up, and it will indeed be Jake Rell lined up at the front of the field. There are the lights out on the iRacing official pace sedan. Beautiful addition to the service a couple of months back in 2021. And of course, the Jake Rall machine, the Kevin Harvick silver, chrome, and red and black Goodwrench Chevrolet will lead us back to green, although it's going to be in the outside lane, Francisco. Interesting call. Not sure if this is going to affect him too much via speed, considering he's been well on the restarts like we've seen, but in the outside lane, kind of risky maybe for the opening start.
I think he's trying to test it right now, really. I mean, it's the first time since the start of the race that we have a bunched up field once again. So maybe he's trying to see just how the outside launches and how everyone else fares up on that outside lane, because it might be a choice of his later in this race. So I guess this is mainly a testing, trying to see just how well he can go against Brandon Smith. But I'll tell you what, Kenneth, given the time of year we're in, I'm surprised we haven't seen a Halloween scheme here tonight.
I think you're going to get proven wrong here, Francisco, later on, because there is indeed Halloween-themed cars, at least one Halloween-themed car throughout this field. You'll see in just a moment. We'll get to it, especially if we get a long green flag run. Give us the opportunity to sort of highlight the drivers as we move forward. But nonetheless, the highlight is on the front row, still unchanged. Jake Rowe, Brian M. Smith. Rowe gets a nice jump out the outside lane, and we're back green flag racing from Kansas.
And it worked out well for him. He got clear before start-finish line. And one of the things about restarting on the outside, Kenneth, that doesn't go said enough is that it's harder for the guy on the inside to time when the outside goes, just because of the angle you have to that on your outside versus when you're on the outside. As actually, we have a caution. We have a wreck in turn 2. AJ Green involved, spinning on the racetrack. And I'm not sure who else is involved in this, but we do have a wreck on the back straightaway.
We saw AJ Green just on that restart was kind of inside, just behind, fighting for third. Had a driver right behind him, so you could assume that he may have had, or may have been tagged on the way there. Doesn't seem to be damaged on that 48 Chevrolet Monte Carlo as he gets back up to speed, and I think is just looking for the position on the timing loop when the caution did fly. But we'll see exactly what happened, and it indeed was at a turn 2, Francisco, and it was with the driver that was helping him, Joe Sanchez. See him there, good restart for that inside group. Sanchez trying to give the shove. Also trying to help them
contact.
around Austin Reedy. Oh, and right there, I think maybe hit the apron. Francisco got loose. Around he went. Typically, you wouldn't see yellow because it's underneath the racing surface. A fantastic save, though, by that 48. And, of course, caution lights are on. Everybody slowed down, including Green, who, in this case, got lucky. He's not going to lose any positions.
Yeah, no contact there, Kenneth. But one thing that this could definitely be attributed to is cold tires.
Watch the restart here. Green going up to speed, already up through the 4th gear. Right there, car steps out on the bottom end of the racetrack. There's nowhere to go but just to weave it right and hopefully keep it straight, and indeed does so. AJ Green, fantastic job to keep that car out of the inside wall, but also to prevent any careening back onto the racetrack to get into anyone else. So Green is going to be unscathed here, I think, apart from just some tire spots maybe with that spin. But Green is going to be back on his way as he tries to shuffle through the rest of the field. So our second caution does come out tonight here from the virtual Kansas Speedway. And if we're talking about Halloween schemes, there you have it. Christopher Bishop, 42, popping out with the Halloween colors. And of course, you got to get into the spirit, the spooky spirit, Francisco. I think we should have worn our costumes before, but nonetheless, Christopher Bishop in the Halloween mood, and he's getting a set for Halloween weekend in just a couple of days.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Kenneth, but I have some Halloween plans with a couple of friends of mine, and we're going to have a Halloween party, and I myself am going to be as Doctor Strange.
As Doctor Strange, famous character from the Marvel Universe. I've taken my thought on Halloween costumes. At first, it was going to be Mike Lowry from Bad Boys. Kind of thought about it for a little bit, decided it was probably not going to be worthy. Then Frozone came to mind. Thought that was going to be a lot of fun. Then it turns out there's no costumes anywhere for Frozone, so had to make things do, and I think it's going to be an interesting decision. I'm going to be Drake from State Farm this year's Halloween.
Oh, interesting choice based off that Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, it's an amazing Super Bowl commercial. I think I instantly laughed when I saw it on TV, but yeah, Drake from State Farm going to get the beard. I don't know what I'm going to do with the heart hairline thing, but I mean, nonetheless, it's going to be a lot of fun. Halloween, couple of days. Hope you're all celebrating it as well with us on the KBueno Racing Network. We don't have the spooky theme. We have the Breast Cancer Awareness Month theme because obviously we show our consolidarity for breast cancer awareness and, of course, spreading our awareness about a disease that has pretty much taken the lives of so many innocent, great people in our lives and in our world. So, nonetheless, we're still trying to get the best of both worlds in this case. Show our awareness while also getting spooky at the same time. But back to the focus of the race. If we're talking about Halloween costumes, could this be one from Brian M. Smith? This is an interesting paint scheme because there's no number on this car. I think there is. It's just on the roof and on the side just a little bit. It says 78 in sort of a normal text, but it says, "Free my boy Jacob." I'm not sure whether he's talking about Jacob Denson or Jacob he knows that maybe we don't know from the KBueno Racing Network, but it is an interesting car that he's bearing here. A bright yellow. Says he ain't do nothing wrong. Hashtag Jacob Lives Matter. I'm not sure what this came from, what this is about. We can ask him about it, but it's truly an interesting scheme as we get the 1 green signal.
It has all the sort of sights of a meme car, if you will. This is the exact way a meme car would look, and you said it right there, "Free my boy Jacob" on the side. I don't know who you are, Jacob, but I hope you get freed.
We'll see if he gets any justice out of this race, and maybe the TV time on the KBueno Racing Network gives some awareness. Who knows? I'm not sure. But
Maybe.
We're ready to get back green here on lap number 18 of 100. Still, of course, a long way to go here from Kansas. Brian Smith is considered your race leader. Jake Rell will be to his outside on row number 1. It'll be Austin Reedy and Joe Sanchez to file up row number 2. Jacob Denson and Nicholas Gowan have moved up to row number 3. And of course, Craig Lounslugger is on the outside, and Kyle Benson, driver we talked about in the points standings, finished third just last week at the Charlotte Motor Speedway in that Perrier car, similar to what we saw in the Ricky Bobby movie. And so he's going to be lining up the inside of row 4, back to P8. Tyler Murray and the 69 machine, actually no, the 93 of Cody Kinsey will line up the drivers back to your current top 10. Pace car makes its way down to pit road. It'll be Roel on the jump, Smith to react, and again, Roel is going to be able to clear back to turn 1.
There was a close call there off turn 4 as they were coming to the green. The inside was stacking up, and there was almost contact between Denson and Tyler Murray. They were able to keep it off each other, but that's going to be a point of focus on these restarts as stack-ups there trying to time when the leaders go or when a line is going to try and get going, because that could definitely impact those further back in the field. As you see single file through most of the top 10, a little bit of 3-wide action further back in the field. There you see Curtis Kelly in that Shrek 2 Interstate Batteries car, and interesting choice of Shrek 2, Kenneth.
We've seen this look out of Curtis Kelly for the past couple of weeks. Put that Shrek face on the hood, and it's kind of been a staple ever since he put that paint scheme on. The driver that we saw win at Myrtle Beach not too long ago, one of the grassroots racing venues that we visited. And tonight was, again, supposed to be the third in USA, but of course with this change to Kansas, we go back to the bigger racetracks and the 1.5-mile circuits. It's a whole battle, though, just inside or just outside the top 20. There's Michael Woolley, the 99 of Colin Forster, on his way back. Lance Hill trying to get up through the front of the field. There's Woolley just in front as he ride on board with Forster. But as he talks single file through most of the field, it's a whole hornet's nest behind them.
You can see the hornet's nest right here. Colin Forster still trying to recover as he's battling with Brandon Gillis behind him. And there you see Lance Hill, a teammate of his, right there. And up front, Kenneth, there's a big battle for the lead. Brian M. Smith and Jake Roel are battling for the lead, but Austin Reedy has come out of nowhere to join these two, and now he's going to slide up the track just a little bit. He's going to stay to the inside of Roel. Smith holding back just a little bit, trying not to really take it 3 wide, and Roel using the outside in 3 and 4 to gain the position, but Reedy trying now to see if he can solidify that second spot over Smith.
Roel playing the defense, used that high line to lead the last time by, but Reedy trying to play spoiler here. Moved up in a second. Now defending against Smith, who's going to lurk inside lane, turn 3. Joe Sanchez, meanwhile, back in P4, also looking at this battle. He can take advantage if need be. But so far, the DEI 11 moving up to the front of the field. And when have we seen this, Francisco? Too many times we've seen Austin Reedy carve up through the field, specifically in this series. And he's doing so once more as he continues to fight with that yellow car underneath.
The difference is that this is happening on a big track for once. Normally we see it at these short tracks where he has to do it consistently through cautions after endless cautions with barely any green flag running. At least here we're getting some good laps in where he's able to make use of the different lines and the different options available. You see Roel there lose the car a little bit, but so did Reedy. That's going to allow Smith to get to the inside of him as he does right there. Those two will stay side by side. Unlike the cup package that we see, Kenneth, it's not exactly too immensely disfavorable for them. They'll lose a little bit of time to the leader, but they won't lose a massive amount of time like you normally would with the cup package.
I also think that this package is just a little bit harder to drive, right? No downforce as compared to the Cup Series car where you have pretty much an amount of downforce that's really hard to fathom as Reedy continues to man that outside line. I believe this time he may have the run on leader Jake Roel at the exit of 4. Indeed he does. So to the quarter panel he goes. To the outside line he goes. Roel's going to be able to lead that lap, but not without a fight from Reedy.
Yeah, and another thing, Kenneth, is that when you go to the apron like that in the trial of wood, does not exactly help your tires on the long run either. So it's a double-edged sword going down there. You make the track shorter, but it really hurts those rear tires. But it looks like Reedy making that outside work. He was able to get to the outside of Roel, and as they go through 3 and 4, this should be Austin Reedy, your new race leader.
Austin Reedy going to try to peek ahead. Top 4 are broken away by more than about a second and a half over everybody else. There's that 4th car in line, the blue and red Housingveld machine of Joe Sanchez, the 3-time winner. And look at that, everybody adapted. Saw that outside line work for Austin Reedy. Now Rowe and Smith working out there. Joe Sanchez really the only one not to go with the consensus here. So he's going to stay low. Everybody else going to go high. I think they found some grip up here, and now they're realizing just how fast this part of the track is.
And I talked about this at the top of the show, Kenneth, is that bottom will save you tires, but it does get to the point where that outside is just so fast that it's actually worth running up there, even if it does wear your tires out more. If Joe Sanchez stays running that bottom, eventually we may see it equal out. But if you do run now the bottom and then go up top like these guys are doing up in the front right now, it won't really kill your tires all too much. The problem is you don't want to run up there from the start of the run. If you do that, then you're in trouble. But it looks like Reedy was able to do it just right, and now he has these guys battling behind him.
And now Roel is almost going pretty much -2 on end, right? He's already fallen from the race lead, now falling to P3. And Joe Sanchez is going to be the one next in line who's still working that bottom side part of the track. as everybody goes high. Smith going to go inside for the race lead here into turn 1 and 2. But as for Sanchez, he's just sticking with his rhythm, staying where he's trusted it. And now he's just looking at the battle for this lead and just letting them do their own bidding. I think we've seen that a lot of times in racing, and most notably in iRacing, Francisco, where you see a guy, you see a battle, and of course that guy on the outskirts of it, just kind of watching these guys do their thing. He's already in his rhythm. He's on the muscle memory, but these guys are just going all out as they're almost 3 wide for the lead back to turn 1. But Sanchez just kind of holding in and say, all right, you guys are going to be aggressive. I'll let you do all that, but I'll take the work in if the long run kicks in.
And most of that is usually found with packages such as this with the ARCA car or the Xfinity car when there's low downforce because the car is hard enough to drive. If you have somebody battling like that with the Cup package, everybody's always willing to take it 3 or 4 wide to complete the pass because of the amount of time those cars side by side lose, but also because of the big run you get. So the package also comes into effect when you have guys battling like that because you have to lift so much, you have to control the car so heavily through these corners that you can't just turn left or turn right and clear them before the corner and gain 2 spots.
Well, you see Sanchez now making work of the latter half of the top 3. Went to the inside of Roel, got the run on the bottom side. Now trying to get a 2-for-1 offer here if he can catch up to Smith. Oh, they continue to make that outside, that 20 degrees of progressive banking here at Kansas work. And Joe Sanchez kind of having a hard time here as well. Almost peeks it to the middle 3 wide. But the top 4 just continue to run for position as 5th on back have kind of simmered. There's Nicholas Gowan back in the 31 machine. He's so far looking in the top 5. There's Jacob Denson just behind him along with Craig Launslager. But Nicholas Gowan, we talked about him as a spoiler last week at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, was the winner over in the Cup Series. I think just found the luck enough to make it to the ARCA race as Smith hits the outside wall.
Smith gets into the wall. He's going to lose both of those positions. That'll put Joe Sanchez up into second momentarily as he's still battling with the 29. And that puts Nicholas Gowan up into the 4th position. So Smith, trying to be aggressive to catch the 11 of Austin Reedy, tags the outside wall. We'll get a look at it here in 3 and 4. He was holding off those 2, trying to see if he can pull away and start catching your race leader, and just too hot on the entry as the tires were underestimated just the amount of grip he was going to have.
You saw him just stuck to that outside wall. It's a kind of a negative feature of these ARCA cars, the way they're built with the twisted bodies, that if you get into that outside wall, it kind of just sucks you up there, and it's just really hard for you to get back down onto the racing surface while not being on that outside wall. And for Smith, got the worst end of that, although he ends up falling just only to P5. So it's not the biggest strike, especially considering he was running that outside lane, but it is going to hurt him significantly as here's a battle for the lead. There's Jake Roel up at the front in front of Austin Reedy and Joe Sanchez, who was fighting with Roel for second at the time. They've now both caught up to the 11, and they're starting to really put that paces as Roel takes back the race lead.
And you have to wonder, Kenneth, was this because Austin Reedy ran the top much quicker and much higher and a lot earlier than these rest of these guys? But look at that, Roel gets into the wall. That puts Reedy back into the lead, but Joe Sanchez is coming on the inside. Those 2 are going to be side by side. Roel losing ground, put Nicholas Gowan up to 3rd.
Gowan going to move up to 3rd, but they're still door-to-door for the top position in the field. Sanchez has been on the rhythm down low. Reedy trying to push the limit up top. He's going to remain in the race lead for now. Going to shut the door, cut right in front of that 55. And for now, they're going to calm things down, but it's just all about pushing as much as you can, Francisco. When you've got the grip, starts to rubber in. It starts to feel a little different when the tires start to wear out. You try to push it even further to that cushion, and it just gets so risky to the point where you overcook it. You slam that outside wall. It's not necessarily a full slam because you're already up there, but it's enough to slow you down. And for Roel and Smith, hits them with the double whammy, and now they're sitting behind Gowan trying to catch back up.
Yeah, and in both instances, it was on the entry of the corner. Just underestimate the amount of grip you're going to have entering the corner. You have to really back up your corners on the long runs here, more than you'd expect. You'd have to probably lift right there on that Cup Series logo on the outside wall, let the car roll a bit, and use the wall proximity if you go high enough to really help the car turn and sort of ease onto the throttle before you can really get full throttle. If not, you hit that wall off exit, and then you'd really be in trouble for the straightaway, and on top of that, damage to the race car. But you see Cody Kinsey right there in front of Kyle Benson. Benson trying to see if he can make the move towards the inside. That's Craig Launslager in front of them, and this is towards the backside of the top 10 positions. Right now, Benson in that 10th position itself, trying to see if he can work his way up. He won back at the Five Flags Raceway, and that really kick-started his season, Kenneth, because up to that point in both Cup and in this ARCA series, he had really been struggling, had no momentum, and he won that race. He finished second at Charlotte, and he's in the top 10 right now. But we know that once that momentum is on his side, he can really put a string together. And do remember, he is the defending Truck Series champion.
Indeed is, and that was before they made the switch over to the ARCA Chevrolet cars. So Benson is sort of a defending champion if you want to keep it that way. And just because of the secondary series to the Cup Series, Benson, with that crown last season, going to be looking forward. And I think locking himself into the playoffs is a very good start as Kinsey tagged the outside wall just a bit. Benson's going to work to the inside. And here's a tale of two stories right here. Benson locked in. Mentioned he was the winner at Five Flags a couple of weeks back. Kinsey is outside of the top 10 in points. Mentioned him at the top of the show when we talked about our current points graphic and which drivers are considered in, which drivers are considered out. Kinsey so far a total of 32 points out of that cutoff in P10. So whatever points Kinsey can get, especially even if it's in P9, is going to matter a lot in terms of momentum. When you look forward to the next three races, of course, our next one at the Richmond Raceway, and then further on to Daytona, where we'll crown a regular season champion, and of course, we'll kick off the playoffs. So Kinsey in that position, Francisco, where the desperation is kind of starting to kick in just a little bit, and he's going to have to take desperate measures if he wants to get into the top 10.
Yeah, and with the races winding down, Kenneth, it's not going to be easy for these guys to do that because it just gives you less opportunities, and the larger the gap is, the more likely you're going to have to go for a race win in order to do so. And we know that opportunities to win a race are not exactly easy. They're very hard to come by, especially to complete, because we've seen that happen to most of the guys that were in the championship for last season. They've struggled to win races, and these guys were the top drivers of the season just a year ago. So to see them go from such a high standard to struggling as much as they have this season, it just goes to show, one, the change in competition with the newcomers, just how strong these rookies have been, but also how hard it is, because sometimes you can tend to forget just how hard it is to get these wins, to run good, to be that consistent.
Gotta also think that, especially in this series, not necessarily the Cup Series, that you've had, obviously, the large change. You changed vehicles. You changed from the NASCAR, Camping World Truck Series trucks now to the ARCA Menards cars on the iRacing service. So you're having to go for a truck with not that much power, a lot of downforce to a car that has more power and less downforce. So you really have to adjust as a driver here, especially in this series, as Raul attacks the outside wall and Smith is going to work to the outside. That it's just a completely different dynamic when you change cars, and of course you have the newcomers come in, the new teams, and just a new format overall that comes with the new season. So there's been a lot of struggles for many regulars. There's been a lot of success for the newcomers, but as for now, we do see some of the legends and the experienced drivers come up to the top, much like Brian M. Smith, and especially given drivers like Joe Sanchez that made his first handful of starts in the Cup Series last campaign. And right now, he is really putting Austin Reedy on the pressure block. To the inside he goes, and this should inevitably be here, Francisco. The pass for the race lead. We'll see if he ends up shutting the door on Austin Reedy. Believe he did just that at the exit of 2. And Joe Sanchez, your new race leader as we come to halfway.
And Kenneth, let's remind our folks who watched the Kansas Cup race here last season, Joe Sanchez is really good at this racetrack, and he went from flying 50 feet in the air after a jinx on my part to finishing second in a great battle with Kyle Benson for that win. And right now he just passed his teammate for the lead. So Joe Sanchez trying to see if he can get a little bit of redemption from last season.
Joe Sanchez, of course, looking for that win. This would be his 4th if he can get it done at the end of 100 laps. And to say that this season has been one full of dominance out of that 55, then it would definitely be an understatement. Joe Sanchez, one of the most consistent in this car. And ever since the drop of the green flag to start, Sanchez has been consistent. He's racked in the top 10s, racked in the top 5s, of course, gotten the race wins at some of the toughest tracks, mind you, on the schedule. And Sanchez looking to continue some of that success as he continues to defend against Austin Reedy, who holds still about a 1/10 of a second deficit behind that 55 Chevrolet machine. And with this green flag run, Francisco, this is obviously our longest one of the night. So, of course, given the first 2 yellows that happened within the first at least 25 or so laps, we're starting to settle ourselves in. What this could mean is potential strategy down the road. Driver's going to have to pit before this race ends. maybe you could look at it over the first 44, just depending on what strategy you took under the first 2 yellows.
And the interesting part here, Kenneth, is because of those 2 cautions when they came out. The first one came on lap 10, and the second one came immediately after on that restart. But nobody really came down pit road, at least anybody in the front. If anybody came down on that second stop to top off further in the back, they're going to be in a good position. As actually, speaking of topping off, here come your leaders down pit road, and Roel's going to, he doesn't overshoot it, but he is sideways in that pit stall, so very aggressively going entering his pit stall. So we see Brian M. Smith and Jake Roel in their stalls, and I was actually just about to talk to this. As you see, Gowan enters a little bit further back there. We were running close to 30 laps on the fuel run from our last time that we came down pit road. I think these guys could go closer to 40 laps, but because of the fact that you can't quite split the race into one stop, these guys won't try to push it to the end on their fuel run. As you see, Brian M. Smith just sideways on that car on the exit of pit road. Because they aren't exactly cutting it close for a 1 stop, they're not going to risk it. They're going to go for a safe 2 stop and try to use a little bit of the tires to make up any ground that they may have lost, which, as you know, Kenneth, they were behind the leader. So maybe this will work out for their favor, at least in the short run, and give themselves the immediate lead as we see more cars come down pit road.
And of course, with the unlimited tire set rule, then these guys can pretty much put any amount of stops they want to and use the fresh tires to their advantage. There are the 2 40s machines, the 45 and the 46. Same song, different verse of Denson and Harcum. They also had a 3rd driver join them as well. So this is pretty much the height part of, or pretty much the peak of our green flag pit stop sequence. Still a couple of the leaders yet to come down. And of course, we're going to be keeping an eye on those and see exactly when these guys are deciding to take that part and go down pit road. Many of these drivers approaching now just a handful of laps, about 40 laps on their full stint. So with that undercut made by both Roel and Brian Smith, along with a handful of others in the field, got to think that the overcut may be in mind for many of these leaders. There's Gowan right there on the fresh tires. You could just tell how strong fresh Goodyear rubber is here, Francisco, at these 1.5-mile progressive banking tracks. 3 wide in the middle, as I believe Bishop may be slowing down for pit road. He's not going to go so this time by. But again, fresh tires reigning supreme at this point of the race, and could give some pressures for these guys to go down pit road sooner than expected.
Yeah, and I think what these guys are doing right now is they're staying out about 5 laps sooner than what these guys came down for pit road. And they'll have about 5-lap newer tires for the next 30 to 40 laps. And they want to use that advantage that they'll have in that side of the run, which could be very useful. As you see one car sideways there after almost making contact with Colin Forrester. These guys going to try and take some avoiding action to avoid an incident. That was Eric Schaefer involved with Colin Forrester. That was a close one, but they're able to keep it going. As you see one car there on the apron getting ready to come down into the pit lane as another one hits the wall. That is the 42 of Bishop that comes down pit road. But these leaders, I think they're trying to stay out, at least right now, Kenneth, and they're going to try and see if they can use a newer set of tires compared to the rest and run them down over the next 30 to 35 laps and really set themselves up for that latter portion of the race so that they can just match them once they take the track position.
We'll see if that overcut ends up paying off. As for the leaders, pretty much everybody apart from just a handful, I believe just over 10 now when we cross the start-finish line, have not hit pit road as of the lap mark number 40. So as for Sanchez, Reedy, and these guys, they have not given any signals to them coming down pit road. There's Brian Smith and Jake Roel. That's going to be big here, Francisco, because they're going to unlap themselves. And it's going to give them better opportunity for when these guys go down pit road and maybe even get an advantage if, let's say, the fresh tires don't work or maybe they make a mistake down pit road. Could be crucial here for Smith and Roel to try and make this undercut successful. But as for Joe Sanchez, continues to run through the field and now on the higher side now, so I think he finally gave up, Francisco. He was all the way in the bottom, decided it was better to run momentum side up top, and now he's doing so just like Austin Reedy, as there are the drivers that are aiming to unlock themselves, Gowan included in this 3-car trio.
I think Sanchez is waiting for the 78 to get by him here. The minute he does, he's going to try and, there you see Brian Smith does unlap himself. I think Joe Sanchez is going to come in the next time by, because if he comes in this lap, Kenneth, that should put him close to about 10 to 12 seconds behind the leader, which sounds like a lot, and it is. But with about almost 8-lap newer tires, he should be able to make that gap up in about 15 to 20 laps after the green flag pit stops, assuming he doesn't make any mistakes. So we'll see here if he goes to the bottom. He doesn't. He stays up top, so he's going to stay out for now. interesting call here. I would have thought that maybe after he gets unlapped by these guys that he would decide to come down pit road. Austin Reedy, same play, and he's been losing time to Joe Sanchez the last couple of laps. So it was an interesting call by these leaders. I'm not sure if they're banking on a caution or what exactly they're hoping for. Maybe, Kenneth, I think they're trying a one-stop. Now that I say that out loud, it does look like that's what they're aiming for. You mentioned a couple laps ago they had lap 40. If they're closer to lap 45, we are almost at 45 laps to go. So they might be trying a one-stop here, but the only thing they might not be taking into account is the fact that they had extra caution laps in this past run to really help them out. So this first 45 is a little bit easier than the last 45 if that is what they're trying to do here.
Indeed, the one-stop looking viable. I believe that was going to be the sort of the predicament here, at least in my thought on pit strategy. If it went green all the way to the end, that drivers would look to maybe cut it to halfway, then pit once, and then not have to deal with dilemmas further down the line. But if we're getting presented with this one-stop strategy by many of the race leaders, now what does that put in perspective for guys like Smith and Rowell? Does that put them at a disadvantage, or does that put them at a slight advantage? Or where does it put them in the spectrum of drivers now on the two-stop comparatively to these guys who are looking for that one-stop?
Well, it's a disadvantage in the sense that once these guys do come down pit road, they'll be on the older tires and they'll get ran down just like these guys did. The only advantage I see in that strategy is the fact that right now, I believe they're about half a lap behind the leader in terms of on the racetrack. So when these guys exit pit road, they'll be a lap down or about to unlap themselves as Brandon Gillis just exits pit road. But if you look at the time gaps right now, Brian M. Smith, there you see him right there. Brian M. Smith is about, I'm going to say 15 or 16 seconds behind your leader. Actually a little bit more than that. As you see, he is about 25 seconds behind your leader. But with the lap here right now being at about 32 seconds, as you see there, 33 almost probably for your race leaders, that is a significant time. I think that he'll most likely come out a lap ahead of your race leader whenever your race leader does decide to come down pit road. And Joe Sanchez does have to make up that time, but these other guys will have to come down again. And actually, Joe Sanchez is going to peel off this time. He's going to make his way down into pit road. He's coming in hot, Kenneth. He's going to miss it.
He's going to miss the cone, hit the grass. Will that be a penalty for Joe Sanchez as he completely botches the entrance? It looked a little bit late from the view out of the front windshield. And did it is. So Sanchez, I did mention, Francisco, any possible mistakes out of the race leader. And Joe Sanchez, a mistake right there. Hard on the brakes. There's Cody Kinsey and Austin Reedy to follow. They seem to be on pit road fairly clean. There's a lot of drivers down pit road. Actually, a heap of cars. Jesse Priest, Tyler Murray, Vizzuti, Forrester, MacArthur. There's Curtis Kelly in the 71 machine. Kyle Benson down pit road. So everybody here looking for that one stop. But for Joe Sanchez, that could have been the bed made for him, Francisco, with that mistake, because it's going to cost him a lot of time. And, of course, if penalties are issued, which they probably are at this point, he's going to have to hold down pit road, and he may be 1, maybe 2 laps down by the time he comes out.
Yeah, that was an unsafe pit entry. That's the penalty iRacing will give you there for missing that cone. And you can see, unfortunately for him, just stopped there on the entry as these guys continue to make laps around him. That is going to be race over for Joe Sanchez, at least contending for the win. You could just tell it was so late on the brakes, and Kansas has an underrated pit road entry here, Kenneth. It's kind of similar to Chicagoland in a sense, but right here you see gets on the brakes, just not real effective at slowing it down, and just goes wide, locks him up, never going to turn that way, clips the grass, and just far out wide. He was never going to make that.
It's such a tough moment for Sanchez, who, like I mentioned earlier on, is finding his momentum, or found his momentum really here at Kansas. And like you said, Francisco, was looking for this Kansas success after what happened to him in the Cup Series last campaign. For Sanchez, he may be out of this race for good. So we're going to continue to cycle through. Race leader is the driver you're seeing on your screen right now, 44 laps down on his stint. That's Tony Kivitt in the 7. He's getting absolutely hounded by fresh tire cars. That's Lance Hill and Austin Reedy, respectively, going on the outside and inside. Michael Newbraw is the only other driver not to pit 50 laps on his stint, just behind the race leader. And, of course, in third with that one stop earlier from the rest of the field, Brian M. Smith, Jake Well, Nicholas Gowan, those 3 now finding the fruits of their labor, just after they found out that Sanchez had that pit road speeding penalty.
And what this done is that it's opened up the doors for Tony Kivitt and Michael Newbraw, Kenneth, because they both have to pit one more time, just like Brian M. Smith and Jake Rowell, who take over the next couple of positions. So right there you see Kvyat coming down pit road. He's for sure safe to the end. He ran about 46, 47 laps you said there, and it's going to be 40 laps to the end. The rest of the guys, they ran about 45 and have to run 45 to the end. The only problem is they had extra caution laps the last time that they ran those same number of laps. That's to save more on the green, which is going to be a lot more difficult. So for Tony Kvyat and Michael Newbrough, who now assumes the race lead, it'll be a lot easier for them. I don't even think they have to save any bit of fuel under green here, so they can just push flat out on these new tires once they come and get them, build the gap to the guys on the same strategy as them in the sense of the amount of pit stops left in the race, like Brian M. Smith was about to get by him here. But with those new tires, he'll be able to make up that delta time. And by the time Smith and them come down pit road, they will have enough laps to make up that ground.
And Michael Newbrough coming up 53 laps on a stint. So if you're talking about saving, Michael Newbrough probably did just that on the hardest maximum level, because he's gone this far without taking one look down pit road. I believe this time is going to be the time he's going to stop. But like you said, Francisco, with now less than 40 laps to go, this is prime sweet spot for Michael Newbrough to get all the way to the end of this race and try to gain some positions, while most of these guys, especially on this strategy here with Smith, Royal, and Gowan, they will have to pit most likely a second time around. This will give Smith, Royal, and Gowan the current top 3 positions on the racetrack. So for Brian Smith in the 78, this definitely panned out the way he hoped it would, with Sanchez having that mistake down pit road, with these drivers trying to cut through but also unlapping themselves, so has no effect on race position really in the running order. And this is really making up a very good effort from these guys to make that call early after the first 64 out of 100 laps scheduled here from the virtual Kansas Speedway. We'll take a moment to step aside, but you won't miss a thing. You're watching round 14 of the 4Wide Racing ARCA Series from Kansas. Brian Smith, your current race leader.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics and engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
back live from the virtual Kansas Speedway. Our coverage on the KBueno Racing Network of round 14. The 4x Racing ARCA Series. There is second place, Jake Well in that 29 Goodwrench Chevrolet. He's tailing just behind who is your current race leader at the end of our first round of green flag pit stops. The 78 of Brian M. Smith. Who again, him, Rowell, and Gowan, your current top 3 on a 2-stop strategy to end this affair. Everybody else behind them on the 1-stop. They can make it on fuel, theoretically, to the end of this race. Kenneth Bueno, Francisco Bacchiao up in the broadcast booth. Francisco, it's been a clean race since the first 2 yellows. We've had a lot of green flag action and a lot of different strategy. I don't think we were expecting drivers to play split here on this call for the end of the race, but for the top 3, they're kind of against the world here, sort of like Scott Pilgrim. And with the 1-stop versus the 2-stop, if it stays green, we're going to see who gets the best out of the both.
Yeah, we've been green since about lap 17 in this race, so we've gone 55 or so laps under the green flag consecutively, and that's been good to see, Kenneth. A lot of green flag action, these guys able to keep it straight, despite all the tough conditions they're facing out there, this hot track with the, just very tough to drive. The cars here are very loose already with the lower downforce makes it all the more difficult. And now you have these different pit road strategies under this long run, and we're going to see which one works out. The one I have my eye on is Tony Kivet. He's just recently unlapped himself from Brian M. Smith, and he doesn't have to stop anymore. We know Brian M. Smith, Jake Rowe, and Nicholas Gowan all have to come back in. So at this point, Tony Kivet is basically racing those that are on the 1-stop, but that pitted before him because they either have a lot of a slimmer chance of not making it and maybe have to save a little bit, but also Kivet has fresher tires than them, so he should be able to close the gap on those guys. I'm not exactly sure who the highest running on that strategy is at this current moment in time. I want to say it's Austin Reedy, and that's probably a half a lap in front of Tony Kivet. So Tony Kivet has some ground to make up if he wants to catch up to what would be the race leader. As actually, I believe Brian M. Smith made his way down pit road, trying to prevent himself from not giving himself enough time at the end of the race to make it up. So Brian M. Smith comes down pit road, and now he's going to exit. He gives himself 25 laps to catch Tony Kivet to try and pass him before this race is over, and he should be able to do that because he's giving himself enough time. So for Brian M. Smith, the goal now, get past Kivet, and then find Austin Reedy, get past Austin Reedy.
I think that helped these guys in this case here, especially for Kivet and Newbrock, because these guys were on the route to unlap themselves. Smith had hit pit road, so transferred the lead over to Rell, which those 2 drivers were ahead of that 19 of Jake Rell. So, indeed, they played this strategy correctly on that front. And now, at least for the 7, not really the 56 here, he's trying to get around the race leader. For Kivet, this is going to work to be on the lead lap, and of course, he doesn't have to save fuel for the rest of this race, nor make another stop unless we get a yellow late in the race, and tires are going to matter. Theoretically, if we stay green, Kivet should be on the nice ball here to get a good finishing position out of this one. And of course, beat those guys who did pit. So now, with the way Smith has gone down pit road with about 25 laps left to go, what does this say for Rowell and Gowan? They're going to go down pit road, and Gowan's going to miss it completely. He's going to get his car completely sideways. He is going to make the line, so there is not going to be an entry as he spins again. I don't believe there's going to be a penalty here from Gowan. He's going to hit Jacob Denson on the way there. Oh, it's a lot of fiascos here on pit road, but Gowan nonetheless does make it somewhat safely. And these 2 have hit pit road. I was just about to ask when these guys were going to strike down just because they saw Smith come first. And so for them, that's going to be their final stop of the evening, and we'll see where Denson fares as well in that strategy to play. That is going to give the lead to the 10 of Kyle Benson on this route. So we'll see what Benson does. I believe Benson was a part of the strategy of the guys who wanted to cut it halfway, so we're expecting these guys to stay out. We'll see where the rest cycles through. We got a few Ask KBRN questions down in the YouTube chat. One says, what's your favorite song right now and all time? Francisco, I'll let you go first while we look at the Perrier machine continuing the race lead.
I would have to say my favorite song of all time has to be Lose Yourself by Eminem. It's a really great song, well written and well performed, especially when he does it live. And probably my favorite song right now has to be between... It's 2 Nirvana songs, but it's between Smells Like Teen Spirit and Come As You Are. I think those 2 songs are really good. Kurt Cobain did a good job, rest in peace. I think he did a really good job in just expressing it whenever he performed it.
That's a really solid choice of songs by historic artists in the scene, in the music category. And as you watch Austin Reedy try to get to the inside of Cody Kinsey, that's for P4. For me, I think right now it changes a lot, at least from my standpoint. But if I'm going to pick a song that I'm really interested in right now, it's my favorite right now, it's going to be Champion by The Roots. It was a song released a couple of years ago. It was used in a promotional campaign for the 2016 NBA Finals on ABC and ESPN, and I remember redigging through those ads and watching it because it was just a memory to watch that Finals campaign from ESPN, and of course just watching how great that final series would end up being between the Cavaliers and the Warriors. But I mean, that song, I mean, just an uplifting spirit. The Roots, obviously, they've been part of music for a long time. They play music for the Jimmy Fallon show on NBC, and they've produced a lot of great music over the years. So I think Champion right now is my favorite song, something I'm bumping in my car whenever I go out. All time, I'm going to say it's obviously a Logic song. He's been my favorite artist for a long time, and it's going to be the song Stainless out of The Incredible True Story. A lot of lyrical parts in that song, a very solid beat, nice hook in there as well. I think it's a very good song to vibe to. Is Brandon Gillis is stuck to the outside wall. Not sure what happened here, but Gillis lost a lot of pace, Francisco, on the back straightaway. Doesn't seem to be damage on that Square Enix Charger, but just a little concern there that could have brought out our yellow.
Yeah, definitely raising some eyebrows there, and I think a lot of people may have breathed a sigh of relief when the caution did not come out. We'll see exactly what happened to Gillis to end up in that position. We didn't really get to see it at first anyways. We just saw the cars going by and he was up against the wall. Probably what happened was got a little bit too aggressive on the throttle on corner exit and tapped the wall on exit and just lost all sorts of momentum. But right now you see Benton still leading this race with Brandon T. Banks now the car behind him, followed by Cody Kinsey. You see Brian M. Smith continue to cut his way through the field, trying to see if he can get past several of these cars to find himself back at the front. We know that he is making up ground and making it up quickly. I'm not sure if he's gotten past Tony Kivitt already. He probably has. And at this point, he is trying to catch back up to these race leaders. He is 16 seconds behind, but with these newer tires, it should be capable, at least given the opportunity to do so. And he has indeed gotten in front of Tony Kivitt, and now he gets past Colin Forrester to get into the top 10. So if this race goes green, it's going to be interesting, but I don't think he has the time to make up those 16 seconds in 16 laps, Kenneth.
And indeed the confirmation that Smith in the top 10 now, Kivitt back in P14. But we'll see if coming to the final 16, especially if we stay green, whether Smith is able to really carve this through as he tries to work on Charlie Harcum, now Brian Dixon. That pass right there on the old 3, if he can get it done, is going to be for 9th. He's going to continue on his way to Lounslucker, Woolley, and the rest of the gang to try and catch up to who is your race leader right now in Kyle Benson. The most notable part of that strategy, though, especially given the 2-stop, is that Jake Roel was back in 18th. He's back in 15th right now on the racetrack. And with that mistake down pit road, Nicholas Gowan is tucked back in P22, the last car on the lead lap on the racetrack. So it is really spread apart. The drivers on the 2-stop strategy, as opposed to the drivers who were looking for the 1-stop that are still out on the track right now to finish this one off. And so Brian M. Smith, with the way he pitted early, that undercut definitely did work the second time around, and for good measure, because he's got a lot of distance and a buffer as he is now moved up to 9th. He's trying to work on Craig Lounslucker just in front of him.
And the key thing was he didn't wait until the end of his fuel run to come down pit road, as we see 3 wide in the tri-oval. He didn't wait till the very end. He knew that he had to give himself some sort of time on new tires to make up the distance, because that was going to be what did him in if he didn't do so. So he's doing that right now, using the freshest tires on this racetrack to make up that ground, and he's now in the 7th position, 12 seconds behind the lead. He has made up 4 seconds in the last couple laps, so maybe not out of the picture, Kenneth. It's going to be difficult, but he might have a chance to get there before the race is over, and that's all you really need is a chance. As a driver, if you think that there's a chance, you're willing to go for it. Kyle Benson circulating around this racetrack with just over a 1-second lead, as we're going to be approaching 10 laps to go, Kenneth. And before we dive into these last couple of laps, you know, when we were talking about the music there, it's already been 30 years since the infamous album Nevermind has been released, and it was in September of 1991 when that album was released. And just think about how influential it was to music for all the years to come.
Yeah, 30 years is a really long time. I know, obviously, we weren't alive when that album came out, but even growing up, you understand sort of the significance of an album, of a music staple in culture, a band like Nirvana or any other artist, really, hip-hop. You talk about Tupac, Notorious B.I.G. They're still talked about now. They're still debated about right now in 2021, and it's been many years since they've made music and many years since their unfortunate passings in the 90s. So just to say how much they've been able to impact culture in terms of their respective categories definitely means a lot. Nirvana up in I think the Hall of Fame of music overall, if you put it there, along with the many artists that I think we can debate for hours, but we can debate it day on, but I think we won't get into it on the broadcast as we get closer to 10 laps to go. We'll highlight a driver, though, doing a great job in the top 5. Jesse Priest and that 00, that black and orange machine. He's moved up from P10. Not a terrible starting position. Mentioned earlier tonight when we were on the starting grid that he had a really good qualifying effort. And Jesse Priest, who has been stricken with some bad luck in this series, Francisco, now picking up the pieces here in the top 5. And if, let's say, Brian M. Smith and the other guys on the fresh tires don't get around him, and even if they do, this is going to be a solid top 10 affair for that 00 machine.
This is exactly what the kind of run that Jesse Priest has needed, Kenneth. He's so much bad luck, as we've talked about, and he's been quiet today, and not in a bad way. He's been silently in the top 10, right now in the top 5 with, of course, we know Brian M. Smith is probably going to run him down and get by him to try and catch up for the race win. Smith 10 seconds behind the lead, so he hasn't gained as much time in the last couple laps, probably due to a little bit of traffic. But we know that Brian Smith could at least get up to Jesse Priest, but even if Priest finishes in the 6th position, still a remarkable run that he's been able to put on, just having a really clean race, which is really all he could ask for.
We talk about drivers who go into races that want to be aggressive, drivers who just want to keep it conservative, and then you just have drivers that really just want to finish. And even finishing a race for these guys is an absolute win. Going to the checkered flag as we cross now. Less than 10 laps to go. Priest is looking in a trajectory for at least top 5, top 6. We'll monitor where Brian M. Smith is in relative. But what's interesting here is that Jake Rowell is not too far behind. He's also trying to catch up. He's a couple positions behind Smith. It is a buffer, but it could get rather close between these two as Smith gets around the 22 of Eric Schaefer and moves into P6.
Yeah, Smith is working his way up through the field, but I don't think he's going to have enough time to really catch up to those leaders. It's looking like he may get Jesse Priest, maybe Austin Reedy in them, but it's looking very difficult for him to catch up to your race leader at the very least, Kenneth. So, unfortunately for him, that two-stop not exactly working out the way he expected it to. You see him right there, but just maybe not working the way he would have thought. Maybe he could have come in 2 laps earlier so that he can have more time on these tires, considering he was going to have an advantage either way, as Kinsey very close to the outside wall in front of Austin Reedy. These two battling for the last step on the podium. At least at the moment, it's the last step on the podium, as Brandon T. Banks is right in front of them. So 2nd through 4th, right under a blanket here, battling very aggressively in the closing laps.
And these three have been rather close. Saw AJ Green in the mix of this as well, but he has fallen back a couple of spots. So, of course, he became the odd man's out. Reedy gets way close to that safer barrier. Exit of turn 2 near that American Ethanol sign. He's going to stay in the 3rd card in this train. And maybe look for P3 if he can get it. Maybe P2 if he can take out 2 birds with 1 stone. Although everybody running the same line. There is Jesse Priest just worked some lap traffic. There's Lance Hill. That's a 71 of Curtis Kelly to try and get around him. I believe also an attempt to unlap himself on the track. And if you can see that tiny yellow speck, not necessarily now as they come into turn 1, but was there on the front straightaway, that is Smith. Total of 3 seconds behind and closing on Jesse Priest, but a total of 8 seconds flat to who is your current race leader, Kyle Benson, and that number 10, Perrier machine. This win, though, Francisco, gonna mean a lot. You mentioned him as a driver that really could not put a win on the board for the season up until he got it at 5 flags. And coming to 5 laps to go, Benson has the opportunity to get a 2nd win in the ARCA campaign and further instill himself still as a championship competitor on his route to defend the title.
You don't want to hand it to him just yet. We know a caution could come out in the next 4 laps, but you want to wait until that white flag to really think that he's got it in the bag, because up until he reaches that line, anything could still happen, especially with these guys racing so aggressive for this podium position. You see Banks had a moment there in 3 and 4. It's going to invite Kinsey to go for the position on the inside. And you mentioned Jesse Prees having a good run, but how about Cody Kinsey, Kenneth? He's racing up in the podium.
And Cody Kinsey, and look at the route here. Plus 18 since the drop of the green, from 20th on the grid to P2 right now on track as he got by the 88 of Brandon T. Banks. And there's Lance Hill on a route to unlap himself. He's going to kind of cipher himself between the two, but no effect there on track position. Kinsey with a fantastic run if he can keep this going in the final. What's going to be 3 laps to go here for the virtual Kansas Speedway. It's been all Kyle Benson since the second round of green flag pit stops. And we mentioned how crucial it would be for the 2-stop guys to really put themselves on the same level as the 1-stop camp. And for now, the 1-stop camp seems to be the way to go, as off of turn 2, it'll be 2.5 laps left for the driver of the 10.
We don't have a driver of the day voting system, but if we did, I definitely would vote for Cody Kinsey, Kenneth. That drive that he's put on today has been really good, especially in context with how his season has been, and all of that just put together has been really fantastic. And Kyle Benson has really been on a hot streak since that win of his at 5 Flags. We saw him have a good run at the Cup race, and a caution comes out with 3 laps to go.
Caution flag waves as Benson was looking for the white flag. And we see some smoke up ahead in turn 3. Gonna try and diagnose exactly who that might have been. You saw Forster and a lot of guys slowing up, but the caution waves, and I believe it may have been Jake Roel in this case, Francisco. Not sure. We're gonna try and confirm officially. Indeed it is Jake Roel. Remember, he was on that 2-stop group with Brian M. Smith and Nicholas Gowan, and he's in a whole lot of trouble in the final laps.
Interesting dilemma at the latter portion of this race, Kenneth. I said it a couple laps ago that you don't want to hand it to Kyle Benson just yet, because we could expect a caution before the end of this one. And what do you know? The caution comes out with 3 laps to go, and Jake Roel, I'm not exactly sure what happened. It's not exactly allowing us to see. The replay is not letting us see that portion. All you can really see is the aftermath with that left front severely damaged and the tire off of that race car. Can't really exactly get a clue on what happened. We'll try and see here exactly what happened. Actually, there he is already spinning, but we can't exactly get a look on the incident itself. It seems seems to be a bug on our part.
And Roel in trouble there, and I think it may have been stemmed off of turn 2. We're still trying to get a look at exactly what happened to Roel, or at least if we can try and diagnose it in some way. There's the smoke up ahead, and then Roel in trouble. Dixon not too far behind. Neither is Michael Woolley, so these guys maybe could give us some sort of look. Maybe Gowan. Round he goes. There's the bumper on the inside lane on the grass. And as for the 29 of Roel, I believe Tony Kivet also had significant damage in this as well. So Kivet may be out of this race for good, unless he's got the fast pair souped up. As everybody comes down pit road. So Sanchez, I think, came out first, but Benson is going to be the leader.
Kenneth, we had some cars stay out here. I believe these are wave around cars, but Tony Kivet doing strategy to take the lead, and he's not the only one. Charlie Harcum actually is a lap car, so Tony Kivet trying to see if he can pull some strategy, and I'm wrong again because they're all a bunch lap cars.
Yeah, and the 7 of Kivet, to confirm, was a part of that incident with Jake Roel. He did burn off the faster pair, so that's why you see a clean car instead of a damaged Chevrolet there on that Coca-Cola Jack Daniels machine. As for Roel, believe he also burned the fast pair too. He is going to be coming out of pit road right now. This is, I think, for P12 here, just in front of Michael Woolley. There's the 69 machine going to get around him, and Colin Forster as well, the drivers that were trying to fight for position in their own right. So this will still give the lead to the driver of the 10, Francisco, moving Kinsey into second, Brandon Banks to third. But what this is going to do, Francisco, is obviously shake up the running order, but it's going to give an opportunity for everybody behind Benson to grab a race win, which is something Benson did not want to see in the final 3 laps.
He definitely didn't, but restarting in the lead still is an advantage because of the control you have on the restart. It's not like you have a small restart zone or where every start is on green, which if that were the case, then maybe being in the lead is a disadvantage. But because the leader has such control over the restart and such a wide area to go in, it is very beneficial to restart in the lead. especially since it's not the cup package, so they can't just draft up on you. But if you're somebody else, if you are the 60 or the 93 of Cody Kinsey, if you are Brian Smith, this is a big opportunity. Speaking of Brian Smith, Kenneth, he had a really good pit stop and found himself up into third. So we haven't seen the end of Brian Smith. The only thing is he's on equal footing now with the rest of these guys. Austin Reedy down to fourth. Jesse Priest staying in that fifth position. Hopefully for his sake, he can still keep a clean run in the end of this one and maybe get a top 5. But as the pace car comes off turn 4, I believe we're going to get the winning.
See, those are a bunch of lap cars. They should get the wave around once the pace car crosses the start-finish line. And of course, it's going to cycle these guys back up to the front just behind the sedan. And there are the drivers indeed speeding up. They're going to get around the pace car. That's Harcum. That's Sanchez, unfortunately, with that speeding penalty, or the unsafe pit entry, rather. Going into pit road for the first round of green flag pit stops for him. And he's more than a lap down, and he's just going to try and salvage what was a successful night at first turned into turmoil after that penalty on pit road, which held him pretty much more than 2 laps on track. And just trying to get as much as he can. We'll get a restart with 2 laps to go, but with this extension, it means we are getting this race to green-white checkered territory, which means we will have 3 attempts to finish this race for the virtual Kansas Speedway. We'll go green with 2 laps to go. If we get a yellow before the leader reaches the white flag, we'll rack them up and do it again. We have 3 chances to do so, but if the leader does cross the white before any yellows are thrown on track by race control or by the iRacing system, then we'll go green all the way to the end, and whoever crosses the start-finish line will be the leader. We've seen many times where green-white checkered attempts have worked. We finished the race under green. We've had only once where Jake Ruel was part in the exhaustion of all 3 attempts, and he was the winner once the field was frozen. Pace cars down, final 2 laps underway. Benson with a good start as they come back to turn 1.
And another good start for Brian Smith as well. He's going to get past Cody Kinsey. Kinsey did not get the start he'd wanted. He's making contact with Austin Reedy for the 3rd spot. Smith up into 2nd. He's going to see if he can run down, but that's a big gap that Kyle Benson's got to be able to close in 2 laps. He's out of here.
And there's Austin Reedy now to the inside, so that could stall his momentum even further. Reedy now underneath in that Chevrolet Impala as Benson comes through 3 and 4, and he is looking directly for the white flag. No caution thrown on the racing service. We will finish this race. Benson, 1 lap to go.
Final lap for Kyle Benson, and a bit of a scare there with that late caution, Kenneth, but this restart has worked a treat for him. He's been able to pull away. You can see them battling away for 2nd. Reedy sideways, just trying to complete the crossover for Brian M. Smith. They're all battling, but it is all Kyle Benson up in the front of the field, Kenneth. He struggled in the early portions of the season as defending Truck Series champion. He got the win at 5 Flags. He finished 2nd a week ago. It's going to be a 2nd win in 3 races for Kyle Benson. He finds the momentum once more as they wreck behind him, but it's Benson winning at Kansas.
Benson, your race winner. Big hit there as Nubro absolutely slammed Michael Woolley coming to the start-finish line. And Benson wrecking on his own right, but it does not matter. 2nd win of the campaign for the driver of the 10, Austin Reedy to 2nd. Well, it's a miraculous crash in turns 1 and 2. Jesse Priest, how about a 3rd place finish for the driver in that black and orange Chevrolet machine? Brian M. Smith is aimed to come home 4th with Cody Kinsey from 20th to the top 5. Not sure how we're going to get a burnout drone, though, with this damage number 10. He's going to still celebrate no matter what. And after the concerns were raised with about 2 laps to go, with a caution coming out and a restart on hand, Benson keeps his composure and dominates the last half of this race to win. It's his 2nd checkered flag of the campaign, and only still going to put him 2nd in the standings in wins to Joe Sanchez, who's got 3, and going to break the tiebreaker in the playoff standings as well. But Benson going to slowly limp to pit road. What a job it was, Francisco. Even in the midst of that 2-stop group, it was the 1-stop brigade to get it done. And Benson, after making that call, cycling out front, he is your winner.
And you have to keep in mind also the mistakes that were made by Joe Sanchez on that sequence. Joe Sanchez was the front runner of that group by a pretty good margin, and he made a mistake entering pit road, made a late call, and unfortunately was unable to do anything with it. As you see, Kyle Benson, just too much damage on that race car to really be able to celebrate in proper, but he is going to take the race win. he's definitely going to be happy about that one. And Jesse Priest, Kenneth, able to come away with a P3 finish, plus 17 on his race. If there was a driver of the day, that's it.
Well, Benson is able to get it done here from Kansas. We'll take a look at your full race results here after 105 laps, an extended race after 1 out of 3 green, white, checkered attempts. Again, second race win on the calendar for the 10 of Kyle Benson. He heads for victory lane after his victory at 5 Flags. Austin Reedy comes home with a solid P2 effort. Jesse Priest on that run up through the field, and that solid end to his second round of green flag pit stops. He ends up, or his first round rather, he ends up in P3. Brian M. Smith somehow makes the two-stop strategy work with help from a yellow. He's going to end up in P4 out of tonight. Cody Kinsey moves from 20th on the racing grid, pretty much our biggest hard charger all night long, plus 15 to P5 on the racetrack. Brandon Banks is going to come on P6. Jacob Denson going to follow suit behind him in 7th. It'll be Nicholas Gowan kind of recovering from that little mishap entering pit road the second time. He's going to finish 8th. Craig Launslager tonight. AJ Green for Stock Motorsports will finish the top 10.
Colin Forrester, being involved in that first caution, will end up in the 11th position. A good recovery from that. Ken MacArthur in the 12th position. Eric Schaefer finishing in the 13th position. Jake Rowe, who was involved in that late caution, able to bring it home in 14th. Brian Dixon, a quiet night in the 15th position. Michael Newbraw, who's on the same strategy as Tony Kivet on the one stop with the late stopping, finishing in the 16th position on the lead lap as he did not get trapped one lap down there at the end. Lance Hill, not exactly the night we were anticipating out of the 34, finishing in the 17th position. Michael Woolley, a tough night for him after a good qualifying effort in the 18th position. Nicholas Vizuzzi, also a quiet night out of him in the 19th position. And Jason Hastings rounding out your top 10.
Behind them, there's Kevin D'Elia, who was one lap down at one point of the race. He comes home 21st. Joe Sanchez, what a beginning to that race it was for him, and turned sour after that unsafe pit entry call from the race officials. He finishes in P22. Jovi Ray will finish 23rd. Tyler Murray to 24th, and Murray becomes the first driver to finish this race, or the last driver rather, to finish on the lead lap. First driver to finish one lap down is the 7 of Tony Kivet in 25th. 26 will go to Brandon Gillis. 27th to the 71 of Curtis Kelly, Christopher Bishop, Ricky Rosner, and Charlie Harcum. Final drivers in the top 30. These are the last 4 to end up in this race. Pete Bruni plus 27 laps down in that 08 machine in 31st. Douglas Carlson, Ryan Steenbachers, and Tristan Bailey did not make it to the green flag. 106 laps down. Well, it'll be our time to take a moment and step into victory lane, where we have on tap a 2-time winner this season. Kyle Benson in the number 10 walks away on a green-white checkered attempt and moves from 18th to the front position of the field. And Kyle, talking to you after Charlotte, you said aggressivity was the biggest part in you getting that top 3 finish, but today seemed like it was all about strategy. Got up front after the one stop, and you were able to put yourself in position to win this race, your second one on the season. Give us a perspective from the green-white checkered, because I know you were leading with 2 laps to go. Caution comes out. I have to imagine must have been a little stressful behind the wheel. Kyle Benson, you got a copy?
Oh.
Hello? You got a copy? Oh, there we go. Do we have you, Kyle? All right, well, we'll try to talk to Kyle Benson over in Victory Lane. I think he's too busy with the celebration right now, Francisco, in Victory Lane. We'll move over to the driver who finishes P2. That is Austin Reedy. And we'll talk to the driver of that 11 who ends up over in the second place finishing running order tonight from Kansas. Austin, I know this race pretty much lends itself with a lot of green flag strategies, but green-white checkered attempt number 1 was pretty much the place to be if you wanted to get a finishing position or a win out of all of this. Your perspective, how was that going into the last laps and as you were trying to get around Brian M. Smith starting from the second row?
Yeah, we had a pretty good start. Kyle, I knew he was going to count it down for me there, so luckily got the 93 on the jump, and we followed Brian into turn 1. I think he went to the high side or got loose. I forget what happened, but we got around him. And then I got loose too and lost a bunch of time to Kyle. And I think he ran the high lane and somehow didn't get around me. But it was a good restart and a good finish for the team. Definitely
a good finish for you and the guys. You started P12, moving up to P2, and obviously the one stop was the biggest point of conversation for you. Of course, you were part of the guys who were part of that one stop to make it halfway, go to the end of this race. So what was your idea on the drivers going for two? Did it kind of throw you off a little bit, or was it always in design to go halfway and then try to make it the rest of the way?
I was kind of looking at my fuel going throughout the run, and I could see that we were probably good by, if you saved just for a little bit, you were good for a lap or two if you ran the first stint all the way out. So we just ran the first one all the way out, and I think with 2 to go, it was still telling me I was like a lap and a half to the good, so I knew Kyle was good, and I knew the guys around me were, but I think you just had to run that first one as long as you could if you wanted to make it a one-stop.
Nonetheless, you make it happen. You guys all pitted before that green, white, checkered attempt, and you walk away with a P2 effort here from what was supposed to be USA. Ends up here from the Kansas Speedway. Moving on to the next couple of weeks, Richmond, Rockingham, and Daytona to cap off the season. I know for you specifically, Austin, you are kind of on the oddball here, P16 in points coming into tonight for the ARCA series. So what are you going to try to do in the next 3 to kind of structure yourself for a playoff run, or if not, just go out for wins?
We just got to be consistent like we were tonight. Probably clean up a little bit on the pit stops and tire saving. But I think if we do this every week, we have a good shot to get there. But I think with my circumstances being so far back and the points, it's definitely got to be a win and in. So 1 week we'll have to get it all to come together.
Of course, you still got the opportunities to do so. I'm figuring with the second place position finish here from Kansas, going to still be on that momentum train upwards. Austin, before we let you go here from the broadcast booth, is there anybody you just want to thank for making all of this possible? Any teams, sponsors, or just anybody else you just like to give the love and shout outs to?
Yeah, Tyler for putting up with all of us each week, and you guys always put on a great show, and I'm sure guys are going to go back and rewatch the broadcast because it was a pretty good race.
Well, we certainly appreciate it, Austin. Want to give you the congratulations on the second place finish here tonight from Kansas, and of course we wish you the best of luck when we go to the Commonwealth of Virginia next week.
All right, see you guys.
Austin Reedy, your second place finisher here tonight from the virtual Kansas Speedway. We'll talk to the winner just after we get the feel-good story here for Jesse Prees in the 00, who's caught up with our very own Francisco Bacquiao on pit road.
Jesse, it was a quiet but strong night for you for a change. We saw you running up front for most of the night. You had a clean race, which is exactly what you've been hoping for, and you're able to come away with a P3. Can you take us through that race?
Yeah, just trying to keep it out of the wall. I'm not real good in the high line here, but I didn't have the short run speed, but I did okay on the long run, and I probably wasn't really a top 10 car, but I had pretty good strategy there, and then got lucky on that restart. Got a pretty good start, but it was fun.
Yeah, we saw through the middle portion of the race that the strategy was beginning to open up between people on 2 stops, people on 1 stop. We saw most of the field go for the 1 stop. Was it very difficult to make that 1 stop work, or was it just enough of a window where maybe not enough saving had to be done in order to accomplish it?
Yeah, we actually had a lap or 2 to the good, so it was better than I thought it was going to be. That last caution, obviously, wouldn't have been able to make it, but
yeah, we saw that that late caution came out with the 19 being involved in an incident, setting up that late race caution, and we knew it was going to be pandemonium at the front of the field. We saw a lot of action there going for second. Did you think that anybody would be able to challenge the 10 on that restart, or as soon as he was gone, was it just a battle for second?
I really didn't think I was going to have a shot for third, but the outside line looked like it had a little bit of issue there. Not sure what happened with Cody and Banks, but I was happy to stay in the top 5, really.
A strong night for you, Jesse, and we hope to see you out there tomorrow night as well. We also hope to see you next week to build on this strong run. Thanks for taking the time with us, and of course, before we let you go, who do you have to thank for such a strong performance?
All the guys at Drinking Bros and Banks and Cody. Is fun race with them guys up there. I'll give a shout out to my daughter Cadence because she never gets to hear me.
Well, thanks for being with us. We hope she's proud of you, Jesse, and again, hopefully we see you next week.
All right, thanks, guys.
As Jesse Prees, who comes home in P number 3 on the last step of the podium here, even through a green-white checkered attempt here from the virtual Kansas Speedway. We'll finally be able to talk to our race winner in victory lane. We'll see if we can dial up Kyle Benson, see if he's got a good on our audio end. But Kyle, first of all, do you have a copy? And with this win, no, the green-white checkered came out with about 2 laps to go. I have to imagine that was a little stressful, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, no doubt in my mind. It was you know, definitely a struggle. Sorry about that. I was over talking with the ladies over in Victory Lane, but you know, stuff happens. But you know, I had a great time. This car was great after like 30 laps, so I mean, I just had to use that to my advantage, and I got a really good strategy call with my teammates, so I was really banking on that too. The green-white checkered was you know, it happens. You know, it's just a part of racing. I'll do it for this reason.
And of course, this race ended up on a strategy call. I talked with Austin Reedy about it, and it was obviously a difference. The guys on the 2-stop who pitted a little bit earlier versus you guys who tried to cut it in halfway this race after the first 2 opening yellows and then going for the rest of the event. For you, were you still very confident in this pit call for middle of the race, then the end to get to the race lead, or was there any consideration about what those 3 were doing for the 2-stop?
I was thinking that for a long time, and then I was told that you can make it on the 1-stop, and I decided to just make it easier on myself. And I made my bed, because by the time I was going to make my decision, it was like lap 50, so it wouldn't really help me as much. But other than that, I was kind of conflicted on it, and then once I was told that we can, like, you know, you're fine, and I was not going to have any problem with Brian Smith, I was just going to keep going and just hoping that I don't get caught by Banks and Kinsey, because they were really fast tonight after they did the same strategies I did. So I was really focusing on the race with those guys, and once after pit cycle and I found out that we're going to be good, I just kind of kept my head down and didn't look at any track map or relative for like a good 40 laps.
Nonetheless, with this win, though, Kyle, gotta feel like a momentum booster, I believe, out of your camp, because you got the win at 5 Flags. It was a tussle over there in Pensacola, but getting the win here at a bigger track, the 1.5 miler, what does this say for you about the momentum you can carry with your team, being locked into the playoffs already with the second win to go into the final 3 races and kick off Bristol with a head of steam to go for a championship?
I'm back, baby. The boy's back. So we're gonna hope we can keep that momentum in the Cup Series, and really hope we have a good finish there.
There you have it, defending champion on his way, and I think spitting some game over there with the ladies over in Victory Lane from Kansas.
Oh,
but nonetheless, Kyle, we congratulate you on the win here tonight from Kansas. And before we let you go, I want to give you this floor here to give a shout out to anybody, any teams, sponsors, or just anybody that makes it happen for you here.
Teamer Designs and Big Fast Racing, they're a really good group. Murray Rudy Motorsports, also a really good team that I'm a part of, and everybody that comes in the 4 Wide week in, week out. So, and you guys have a hell of a broadcast, so you know that's a good plus as well. So other than that, that's pretty much about it.
We definitely appreciate it, Kyle. I want to give you congratulations on the win here tonight from Kansas. So we'll let you go ahead and continue your celebration here, but we wish you the best of luck moving forward to next week at Richmond, and of course tomorrow night in the Cup Series action, you'll get to rumble once more. So we wish you the best of luck on that side.
Appreciate it.
Kyle Benson, flirting with the woman in Victory Lane, race winner here tonight from the Kansas Speedway. What a finish it was. What a race it was in its entirety, Francisco, as we come back over to the broadcast booth. I get our cameras back underway. You can see our beautiful faces once more. Don't think these people wanted to see our faces for too long, but nonetheless, great race from Kansas, and with the change in the schedule, didn't look like these guys were phased at all. Still looked like they were right in it in the rhythm, right in it with their muscle memory, and Kyle Benson walks away with race number 2 at a big track here at Kansas. What a way to do it as we head for short track racing next week at Richmond.
Yeah, I believe this change was probably for the better, Kenneth. We had a really good race here tonight, and we only had 3 cautions total throughout the night. We had 2 quickie ones early, but then we had that long green flag run, and it really presented an interesting race on the strategy side, but also just seeing the people who were good on the long runs, the people who were good on short runs, and we've had a lot of people been able to have a good run. We saw Jesse Prees with that top 3 finish, Cody Kinsey plus 15. You know, I can't help but feel that if we were at USA, it would probably be a similar story to what we saw at Myrtle Beach and 5 Flags, which, no offense to those races, it's just it's very difficult for being both the driver and the broadcaster to cover races like that. But we were definitely treated to a good one here today. And, you know, Richmond next week I think is going to be a good one. Richmond usually tends to be one of the better short track races that we tend to run in leagues. Richmond just being an interesting way because it's not exactly half a mile. It's 3/4 of a mile. It's rather flat, but you have that curved front straightaway as well. Just a very nice setup for Richmond, the way it's run and all that. I think we're going to be down for a good one on that side of ARCA next week, being the first week of November, which is going to be the championship week in the Real Life Cup Series. That'll be week leading up to the championship races. But before we get to next weekend, as far as the Richmond Cup is concerned, we still have one race left here at Kansas, and it's going to be tomorrow night in the Cup Series, and it's going to be interesting, with the mile and a halves with these with the Cup Series package. It's interesting, just the way it all works out. We saw it last week at Charlotte to an extent, just what it will actually be like, because this is only our third mile and a half race of the season. Tomorrow night is going to be our only third mile and a half race of the season. We had the Homestead race, and Homestead is not exactly a track where the 550 package plays too much of an effect on. Charlotte, it does to an extent, but I think tomorrow more so than the 2 mile and a halves that we've had at this point. I think the 550 package will show itself well and truly, and it could go either way.
Definitely could. On the Cup side, still a lot more to come from Kansas. But as for the ARCA series, got 3 races left from now: Richmond, Rockingham, and Daytona. Those are the last chances for anybody outside of the top 10 to squeak their way in and put themselves as a portion of the 10 that are won for a full wide racing ARCA series championship. Of course, so much to come along after tonight from the virtual Kansas Speedway. We'll stay here tomorrow night, 9:10 p.m. Eastern, October 27th, as we wave the green flag for the Cup Series. The Full Wide Racing Cup Series takes their drivers here tonight, or here tomorrow, from the Kansas Speedway. Of course, it'll be on the Max Speed TV YouTube channel. You'll find the same crew, same everything, just on a different channel. You'll find us over there. Of course, 9:10 p.m. Eastern will be the start time. But the next time you'll see us on the KBueno Racing Network will be in early November for the race over at the Richmond Raceway. They'll take place, of course, 9:10 p.m. Eastern next week, right here on the KBueno Racing Network. It'll be a full 200 laps over there in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Well, that concludes our broadcast here tonight of round 14 of the Full Wide Racing ARCA series from the virtual Kansas Speedway. Want to give a shout out to, of course, league owner Tyler Murray, everybody a part of the race council over on the Full Wide League, and of course to our winner tonight, Kyle Benson, taking win number 2 on the campaign. So for all of us here at the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Byer and my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacalhau, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying so long from Kansas. We'll see you next week in Virginia, but we want to wish you a safe and happy Halloween this weekend.